Hey, the Fallen State is looking for interns. There's 2 requirements. You have to live in the LA area and you have to love the Fallen State. Click right here to apply.
Restless, I am so restless, and this changing world leaves me speechless. I am lost for words, but I kept my nerve.
Welcome to the Fallen State. I'm Jesse Lee Peterson. Today I'm speaking with someone who believes the Black Lives Matter movement is important to higher education. I'm talking with Dr. Luke Wood, a social scientist and a professor of education at San Diego State University. In our country today, black men and boys are in crisis. Would you agree to that?
Absolutely.
And why are they in crisis today?
Well, we are in a society that is unfortunately underbedded by racism, and we are in educational institutions that, of course, are part of society.
Where is the proof that it's racism that's doing this?
Well, there's a lot of proof, and it's not only racism. Racism is one factor among a litany of other factors,
Right.
but racism is certainly evident in the experiences of students. We have students who are viewed as being academically inferior. We have students who are viewed as being criminals and deviants by educators in the classroom, and oftentimes they view black boys very differently than they view, say, white boys or Latino boys. And so there's certain ways that racial dynamics play out that help us to see that there are racial differences, and those racial differences tell us that there is racism taking place.
And this is happening within the education system itself.
Well, it's happening in society, but it's also happening in education.
I
So,
see.
for example, with the class that I'm doing, it's called Black Minds Matter.
Right.
And what we're trying to do is raise the national consciousness about issues facing black boys and men in education. And what we're doing is we're identifying the fact that our educational system is not working. It has failed many of our students, particularly our students from the most disaffected communities. Right. And so what we want to do is to radically transform our educational system and for educators to see their classrooms as sites for civil resistance through teaching that empowers students.
And so let's say that within a classroom, at a university, within a classroom, you have white boys sitting there, you have black boys sitting there. Mm-hmm. And so are the white teachers looking at them and thinking or saying out loud, "You're black, I know you're a criminal, you're too dumb to be here"? Are they thinking that or saying that?
Okay, so some people will think that and even say that, but the vast majority of educators aren't bad people who want to go out and do horrible things. They're well-meaning, well-intentioned people who, unfortunately, because we live in a society that is influenced by our history, they engage them in different ways.
Really?
So, for example, let's say that you're a black male student. We hear this a lot in the research that we do. You're in the library, you're studying, and they come by and no one has asked for their ID, but they walk up to you and ask you for your ID, assuming that you may not be there because you're a student, maybe you're there to steal something, right?
From the library?
From the library. This happens a lot.
They're not going to steal from the library. Everybody knows that.
Well, hopefully they'll steal a book if they're going to steal something, right. But these things happen on our campuses.
How do you know that happens? That a black person can be sitting in a library and someone comes up and asks for ID, that they're going to think it's because you're stealing?
Because we do research on this. This is what I've committed my life to. So what I do in my work is I interview black males who are particularly in community colleges. I interview teachers and professors. I do survey work on college campuses. And what we try to do is to help people understand these issues so that they can then move past them. And what we see is that our campuses are rife with unconscious bias and what we call microaggressions. So kind of subtle ways that we communicate to one another that one group is lesser than another.
That's amazing. And so are the teachers, doing the survey, the white teachers admitting, yes, I asked for an ID because he was black. So and I thought he was going to steal something.
So with our survey work, we primarily focus on students and have students are responding that these are the things that happen to them. But I will say that I've had many teachers as part of our training say, this is something that I've done, and I didn't mean to do it. I recognize that I've grown up thinking about them in certain ways, and unfortunately these things play out. And it actually goes back to the whole title of your show, which is The Fallen State. Right? I mean, what is this show about? I mean, what does fallen state mean? Right?
So you believe that human beings are in a fallen state?
Absolutely.
And what does it mean to be in a fallen state?
Let's go to the Bible, right? I'm a Christian, you're a Christian. Let's go back to the Bible. So in the very beginning, right, we see Adam and Eve in the garden, right? And we see them in perfect harmony with God, with nature, and with one another. And the snake says to Eve, you will be like God, right? It's this notion of wanting to be better. Then we go, next story is about Cain and Abel. Cain wanted to be better than Abel, so what did he do? He killed Abel, right? So we see from the very beginning in history that there's this unique desire and that's embedded within us to want to be better than one another. And in our society, the way that plays out is through racism.
There was something called the talented 10th, where the black educators wanted to be better than the blacks who were not educated. W.D. Du Bois and all those guys. They wanted to tell blacks how to think, what to do, when to do it, and blah, blah, blah. Were those elitist blacks being racist against those blacks who were not educated?
They weren't being racist, but they did have a desire to be better than one another. Right? And we should never desire to be better than one another. We should desire for our own improvement. Right? But our goal should not to be that, hey, I see other people and I want to be better than them.
But my thing is, blacks do it to each other too. You have the light-skinned black who the dark-skinned black would hate. And so they would discriminate against the light-skinned black. So was that racist?
I think that was an example of self-hatred.
But not racist.
It is informed by racism, but it's self-hatred.
But not racist.
It is informed by racism and it's self-hatred.
What does that mean, informed by racism?
So because we live in a society that prioritizes whiteness, right, and white ideology and white people, right, we have a society that says this is what you should be. And so for some people, unfortunately, they can look at that and say that, hey, if you want to rise in this society, I should also ascribe to those same kind of values. And so you can see, because of this racism that undergirds our society, that some people will unfortunately tacitly buy into those ideas.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
And now, a word from our sponsor.
I am so excited. I can't believe it. Finally, the Fallen State merchandise is here. Look at this beautiful shirt. We have red, white, and black. Comfortable, I like the fit. Really nice t-shirts. And we have mugs. The Fallen State mug. On the back it says, did you have fun? Did you have fun? A gift. Excellent gifts, both. This is a great way for you to help us. Can you imagine your friends seeing you with this at the office, at the park, in your home? You're going to love it. Order them now. Go to thefallenstate.tv. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. You describe yourself as an advocate for boys and men of color. Exactly what do you mean by that?
So as an advocate, what I want to do is to see our boys and men of color, particularly our black boys and men, become more successful in education.
In the high schools and junior high schools around the country now, especially in the urban areas, they are bringing in things like homosexuality, and they are promoting illegal aliens in the public schools, in return pushing the black kids out. Are you trying to prevent that from happening to the black boys in the schools?
My work focuses on better preparing teachers to teach black boys and men. And what I focus on are strategies, tangible strategies that they can use in their classroom to better improve their success.
Right.
Right?
And but so to keep those things out, wouldn't that better improve an environment so that the black boys can be taught in the proper way?
The vast majority of teachers are white and women, right? And some of them are absolutely amazing. So this is not to disparage white women, right? But if we think about that, that means that the black boy who's in the classroom is most likely not going to see a teacher who ever looks like him. And that white teacher will be teaching someone who is very different from her. So I just did a presentation as part of my course, Black Minds Matter, where I talked about this question that's part of a federal government survey. And what we find is that when the focal child is a black boy in comparison to a white boy, in kindergarten, he's 60% more likely to be viewed as incapable of learning. That's at the earliest levels of education. I think that's where we should be putting our emphasis, is how do we change those perceptions that teachers have?
So is that because the white teachers are perceiving them as being incapable of learning, or something else?
It's because the white teachers are perceiving them as being incapable of learning. And it deals with this concept of what we call, it's called ascription of intelligence, right? Where we ascribe certain groups to be academically inferior based upon how we've been taught to believe them. I mean, what you see on television. I mean, if you think about it, think about the popular depictions, unfortunately, of black men on television. They're rappers, they're athletes, they're entertainers, they're gangsters, but rarely do you see a black man on television who is a doctor or a lawyer.
Well, not anymore.
Or doing, right? Well, no, it's still,
they're
it's
all
still
over
that,
TV now like
it's
that.
still that pattern, though.
Matter of fact, I'm so sick of seeing it that way, I want to see the rappers and the gangsters. So I want to go back to the question, though. If, being an advocate for black men and boys, wouldn't you want to take out the homosexuals, the teaching of homosexuality, abortion, and all that, so that the black boys can have a better environment to learn?
I want to focus on the real issues that are at hand.
You're not telling me yes or no.
I'm not telling you yes or no because I think it's a sidestep from the real issues.
You don't think that is an issue?
It's basically saying, okay, we're talking over here about these real issues that are facing our community.
But that is
and let me throw out something over here. I mean, how come then we're not talking about the influence of Trump? But we're talking about racial
you want
issues.
to create a whole environment, a good environment for the black boys to learn, right?
We want to create an environment where they are loved.
Right.
And so, can I give you an example of what that looks like?
If you took out the illegal aliens, you took out the teaching of abortion and the teaching of homosexuality, wouldn't that create or help to create a good environment?
So, are you talking about taking those things out of curriculum to create space?
Them, yeah.
Okay.
Don't teach that. Teach reading, writing, and arithmetic. Don't allow the illegal aliens to overcrowd the classrooms so that the black kids don't feel pushed out.
So undocumented students are not, I don't view them as illegal aliens. I view them as individuals who've come to our country for a better opportunity.
Did they come through the front door or the back?
Did they come through the front door or the back? Well, for many of them, this is their land long before it was ours.
No, the ones that are coming, did they come through the front door or the back?
Well, their country did have this land long before we did.
Did they come through the front door or the back?
Actually, they came through San Diego.
Is that the back door?
I think that's the front door.
So when someone come in through the back door, is that breaking the law?
I think that people get to this country in many different ways.
No,
I think about our people, we were brought here on slave ships.
Not me. I was born here.
Really?
But let me ask.
You were born here? Your parents were born here?
Yes.
Your grandparents were born here?
Yes.
Their great-grandparents were born here?
Yes.
And the people long down the line were all
what
born
happened
here?
after that. But let me ask, if they come through the back door, are they breaking the law?
Are they breaking the law?
To come in across the borders illegally, are they breaking the law?
Well, that assumes that you believe that the law is always a good thing.
No.
So I'm going to answer your question very directly. I'm going to answer very directly. Are they breaking the law? I would agree that there is a violation of law that is taking place. However, I don't always believe that law is a good thing. And I think there's a lot of examples in our history. We had miscegenation laws that says that black people couldn't marry white people.
No.
We had laws that says that me and you had to drink at a different drinking fountain than your colleague over here.
So
we had laws that put us in chains, right? And said that if we escaped,
I'm not
that they
asking
could kill
about
us.
those laws. Are they breaking the law to come across the borders illegally?
based upon the current law that's in place and the national law, there is a violation, yes, that is taking place.
I'm sorry?
I said, yes, there is a violation that is taking place.
So they are breaking the law?
Yes.
Oh,
there
okay.
is a law that is being broken,
Okay.
but again, laws aren't necessarily moral.
You created a
Jesus was a immigrant, was he not?
I have
They
no
fled.
idea what you're talking
He
about.
fled to Egypt, right? His family fled to Egypt.
You created a free online public course called Black Minds Matter.
Yes.
And it's a focus on black boys and men in education, as we said. What is a black mind?
Black mind is a black learner, a black student.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
But the mind itself is not black.
Oh, I see where you're going. That's nice. So a black person, their life would be a black life. A black person, their mind would be a black mind.
Why not just say mind and not black mind? Because when you say that,
because we're focusing on a group that's
when you
not
say
been
that
doing
though
well.
to black boys, right away they're going to think that their mind is different than the white person's mind. They're going to think of themselves as a black person with a mind rather than just having a mind.
Well, hopefully when they hear the word or name or phrase black minds, they have a sense of a power that comes from that, because black people are the originators of many of the greatest knowledge that we have around this world.
Really?
Yeah.
Like what?
Think about mathematics. Think about medicine, right?
What about it? Are you saying that blacks created mathematics?
I'm saying that blacks are the originator of many mathematical concepts, of many advances
Like
in
what,
medicine.
for an example?
If you
Other
look-
than Dr. Carson, there is no other black in medicine.
There's no other black.
I'm kidding about
okay. I was gonna say, and I
But-
think Dr. Carson, I think for a long period of time was viewed as a hero for much of the work that he had done,
And he still
and I
is.
think he is still viewed as a hero in the context of his brain, the brain surgery and the developments that he had. But I also think that he's become a heel in our community, unfortunately, because his ideology is far outside what would be considered the mainstream.
That's amazing.
It's sad that he's gone that direction.
Is it wrong to judge?
Yes, absolutely.
So are the blacks wrong for judging Dr. Carson?
No, they have.
Because he is a Republican?
They have discernment about the statements that he is
Blacks
making.
don't have discernment.
Really?
I can think of many things that black people have. Discernment is not one of them.
Okay, so what are some of the positive things we have? You said you can think of many things that we have. What are they?
I can't think of any.
You can't think of any?
And the
A
reason,
president. We did have a president.
The reason I can't think, because most black people are so destructive and angry, and they have been used to destroy rather than to build. So they've not set a big example of being good with or about anything. Have you noticed that?
I don't see black people, our people, as being angry. I see us as having righteous indignation and viewing societal ills and wanting to change them.
Amazing.
I think there's a big difference between anger and righteous indignation, don't you?
Give me an example of righteous indignation that black people hold.
Well, I'm going to give you an example of righteous indignation, and then I'll give you an example of what that looks like for black people. An example of righteous indignation is when Jesus went into the temple and he saw the people in there selling items, right, trying to make money off of God. And what did he do? He went through and he kicked them out. So, for example, I think my class is an example of that. We have over 10,000 people who are registered for a course about educating black people. We have over 260 broadcast sites throughout our country. So that's an example of taking and seeing a societal ill and having righteous indignation, a burning desire to change it and to create a better world.
Y'all ignorant as hell.
No, f*** that. I told your ass to shut up.
No, wait. Gee, no.
Because when I say something, I mean it. Now, ask me when my name is again.
Ms. Cox, how do you feel about this situation?
Which is most important to Black Americans? Which would you say would be most important to them? To become men and women of value and of character, or to get a good education?
I don't see those things as being separated. I think
But
we
they
can
are
have,
though. Which one is more important to you for them?
My hope is that people will be able to have an education that can transform their lives.
So is having an education more important than having values?
It's
godly values?
I think it's about having both. And
No,
I think
which
that
is most important?
I think it's about having, so first of all, as a Christian, I believe that having godly values is the most important thing that we can have. And I believe that
So why not
education
push that?
is the pathway into that.
Education is the pathway into godly values?
Yeah, that's why people go to seminary,
Well,
right?
why
They
is
go
it
to
that?
seminary to become a pastor,
But
right? They have to learn.
They end up being dummies and immoral.
Who does?
Those people that go to those seminaries.
So pastors are immoral?
Those that go to those seminaries, most of them end up being immoral men and women now.
Well, I would say they're
You
they
can.
are
How will
human
you
beings.
develop character, godly values by going to a school,
To
any kind of school?
so first of all,
How do you develop godly values by going to, whether it's a preacher school or secular school? How do you develop godly values by doing that?
by being exposed to societal ills, things that are not what they should be, and being given the language and power to change them.
That's not how you develop values.
Yes, it is.
Not godly values.
Oh, I disagree.
Amazing.
Where do
I
you believe the godly values are developed then?
From God within you.
Okay, but who tells you about those values?
God does.
God does.
Yes.
Okay, so God talks to us only directly, or we don't learn. Do you read the Bible?
Matter of fact, you have a better chance of developing godly values by not reading the Bible than you do by reading the Bible. Because when you read the Bible, you get intellectual knowledge about good and can never develop them. But when you don't read the Bible, you're more likely to look for God within you and then live by those values and develop them as you're living.
Absolutely.
But I want to move on. I hear that you support Black Lives Matter.
Absolutely.
You support Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, they
and
do
you
matter.
are a Christian.
Absolutely.
Black Lives Matter is an organization that is built by Black lesbians like Patrice Cullors and
You know, she was a guest in our class.
and Black homosexuals and radical white social justice warriors. And they were chanting, "What do you want, dead cops? When do you want it now? Pigs in the blanket, fry 'em like bacon."
Yeah.
And when they did that, other blacks went out and started killing white cops and others. And you're for all that.
So first of all, I think that's a wide-reaching encapsulation of what Black Lives Matter
But
stands
true.
for. It is not true.
But
All right,
everything I just said,
you can allow me to respond to the
everything I
question?
just said happened, right?
So
You
people,
would
you're right.
admit that it
People did go to protests,
And it is
and
founded
they did.
by a bunch of Black lesbians.
Wait, can I?
Don't you just love that word?
What?
Lesbians.
I love the word black,
Yeah, but why would
and
you support?
we come in all different types.
Why would you, as a Christian
including
man, as a
straight,
professor,
homosexual.
listen?
What?
Why would you support an organization like that, and you want to help the Black mind, and you are a Christian? Why would you support a radical, evil, agitative group like Black Lives Matter?
Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, Tamir Rice, Eric Garner, Oscar Grant III, Alfred Alongo in San Diego, black men who were shot and killed by police officers. Yet you call the people who want to fight against that the terrorists?
Right.
Who's committing terror?
The Black Lives Matter and the thugs that were killed. All those people were thugs you just named.
Tamir Rice was a thug.
Thug.
He was a young kid.
Well, he was young and stupid in that he had a BB gun. And
Did you never have a gun growing up? I did. I had BB guns
He had
growing up.
taken the tip off, the little orange tip off the gun, which indicates that it is a BB gun. And then, so other people saw him in the park with a gun.
Okay.
And they called the cops. The cop got there. The guy going for the gun, they didn't know it was a BB gun because he had taken the tip off. You can't blame the cops for that, can you?
So he deserved to die.
You can't blame the cops that
Did he
died.
deserve to die?
I don't know. He brought it up on himself, that's for sure.
Okay. Did Alfred Alongo deserve
Well,
to die?
let's go back to Mir. He brought that up on himself by removing the orange tip. Will you agree to that?
I would say this.
Would you
I would
agree
say
to
that a child, which is what he
a
was.
child. He was a big child.
He was a child.
He was bigger than you.
He was bigger than me.
Right. Does that matter at all?
No.
It doesn't matter.
You have a child who was killed
He's not a
by a police
child.
officer.
You make him look like some little innocent boy tiptoeing through the tulips.
So
Michael
did he deserve
Brown,
to die?
He brought it up on himself.
See, I totally disagree.
Okay. Let me ask Michael
Did all
Brown.
of them, all these people bring it upon themselves?
Yes, Michael Brown.
Wow.
Let's go with Michael Brown. Was he a child too?
Michael Brown was a young adult.
Well, was he a child?
No.
Was he a thug?
I would say that Michael Brown made some decisions that I don't agree with, but he did not deserve to die.
Was he a thug?
I'm not going to say that he was a thug, no.
Amazing. Had he not attacked the cop,
Oh, I don't think he attacked
would
the
he
cop.
still be
I
alive?
totally disagree with that statement.
You don't agree with that? Even though you saw it happening, you don't believe it?
I don't believe that he attacked
Did
the
he
cop.
rob a store?
I don't know what the evidence says on that because
You
I don't
didn't
know
see
enough
it?
about that specific case.
Amazing. What
But I
kind of
could-
Christian are you?
What kind of Christian am I?
Yeah.
I love Jesus. That
Where's
kind
the
of Christian.
proof?
Where's the proof?
A man that loves Jesus is an honest man.
I am an honest man.
We're not
Very
being honest about this.
No, because you're asking me to talk about a case and go down into specifics of each
But you
individual
brought
case.
them up. I didn't.
Okay, I brought them up, and then I asked you specifically about Alfred Alongo, and then you switched over to Michael Brown. And I know why you switched to Michael
Which one
Brown.
was Alfred?
Alfred Alongo was in San Diego.
It's so many of these stupid things I don't even remember.
I know, it's too many of us are dying.
Because
And
it's
and you know what? No, because there's a war on black
Not
men
true.
in our society.
By
And that
black
same
people.
war that happens in the streets happens in the classroom every single day. For every single
That is
Tamir
so not
and
true.
Eric and Trayvon in the street, there's a Tamir and Eric and Trayvon in our classrooms who are treated in very similar ways by educators, well-meaning educators, but
White
educators.
educators?
Many of them are white, but some of them look like us.
Oh, black people treat them that way as well?
Yeah, we're all socialized in this society to perceive that certain people are lesser than others.
And they do it, according to you, they're doing this, the black teachers are doing this because they are influenced by white people to treat other black kids the same way as whites are treated.
I would not say they're influenced by white people, they're influenced by whiteness.
What does that mean?
Whiteness is an ideology, it's a culture, it's a value system. And what we need to do is we need to eliminate that value system.
You want to eliminate whiteness?
Whiteness, not white people, whiteness.
But how do you eliminate whiteness without eliminating white people?
What I want to do is to create an environment that is more collective, that is more value driven, that communicates love to our children.
So are you
And
saying
I think that flies in absolute oppositeness
are
with
you
whiteness.
saying that white people are evil?
No.
They're
Not at
not
all.
evil?
Not at all.
But then if they're not evil, why would they treat another human being in this manner?
Because we all
to a point
goes
that a
back to
man
original
like
sin.
you
We're all
would
fallen.
to a point that a man like you would want to eliminate whiteness.
We are all fallen people.
What can I do? I'm a meaningless statistic. There could just be a way I could help the fallen state. I'm not crazy. That's never gonna happen. I'm not living in a dream world.
Well, what's the matter with you?
Jesse? Jesse Lee Peterson? You're my favorite YouTuber, and I wish there was a way for me as the viewer to support you.
You can help us, and you can too. Whatever amount you can afford, even $1, we appreciate it. Go to patreon.com/thefallenstate.
That's amazing.
You're involved in something called the Community College Equity Assessment Lab.
Yes.
Right? And what is that exactly? What is that you do?
So we partner with community colleges across the country to identify factors that influence success for Black, Latino, Southeast Asian, Native American, and Pacific Islander students.
And you leave the whites out?
No, we look at whites in part of our work too. We look at low-income whites. In particular, we do a lot of work on what's called food and housing insecurity, which is really like students who are going to school who don't know necessarily where they're going to sleep or what they're going to eat. And I was one of those students.
What is equity?
Well, first of all, let me tell you what equality is, and then I'll tell you what equity is. So equality is everybody gets the same, right? That's equality. Equity is saying that certain groups...
That sounds like socialism.
That everybody gets the same?
Yeah.
Okay, well...
Is that the same as socialism?
Well, It's certainly there's some elements of it, but I'm not advocating for that though.
I'm a dummy here, but is that the same as socialism?
Okay, but I don't.
I'm asking.
I said it's a principle of it.
Of socialism?
Sure. Why not?
Are you a socialist?
Am I social? So let me finish the statement. You asked what the title equity meant.
Right. I'll come
equity
back to
means
that, but
that
are
basically.
You a socialist?
No.
You're not a socialist?
No.
Do you support socialism?
I support the idea that certain people shouldn't have more there should be a relative degree to which people have more than others.
Let me tell you this.
Right.
I grew up in a family that we had 9 kids in our family, right?
Oh, that's beautiful.
And
we
when
had
it
12
was
of
time
mine.
to eat or whatever, you get your food. And whenever we say, well, Daddy or Mommy, my brother has more than I have. Or why do I have such little plate here? They're like, boys, shut up. Go sit down. They didn't say, okay, Johnny, come back over so Jesse can get exactly what you have. What is equity?
So equity is recognizing that certain
LBG.
groups have less than others and different experience than others. And so sometimes they need a little bit more to get to the next level.
Give me an example. How do you do something like that?
Easy. Let's say that you're in a classroom and that you're a teacher and you have, say, 30 kids in your class, but you know that 5 of them aren't as prepared when they came in. Maybe it's not their fault. Maybe it's something that was, the prior teacher they had the year before wasn't as good. Equity would be giving those students a few extra minutes every day than you do with some of the other students to get them to that point where they need to be.
Amazing. You know what they did for kids like that in the good old days?
What's that?
When boys were boys and men were men?
Okay, good old days. I think that's totally a very funny thing to say.
They
What was
did-
good about the good old days?
They didn't
I don't
pass.
know.
They didn't pass them on to the next grade.
Oh, okay.
Until they got what they needed to get in the grade that they were in.
Yeah.
They didn't hold the other kids back. They didn't waste their time, on this person. That's what we need to go back to.
Yeah, except in the good old days, right? You didn't have to necessarily graduate from school to be able to get a good job. You could go work at the mill. You could go work at the shop.
If we got away from socialism, we can do that again in this country. But let me ask you this. Should a teacher use a different strategy in teaching minority students than they do with white students?
Yes. The curriculum has been designed for students who do not look like them, for students who do not talk like them, for students who do not come from communities that they come from. And so what we need to do is to radically transform our classrooms into sites for civil resistance. And let me tell you what I mean by that. Through an education that empowers students, by telling students messages that encourage them. Rather than learning about the history of some other group, we should be able to learn about our own history.
Kilometer to Mickey D's about 8 blocks away. How long is a meter? From the woods alive each and every day. How long is a decimeter? That's a half a hand. 2 decimeters make a hole hanging in a centimeter. My nail bed. Look. Come on, brag to me. Look. This is what I said. Break it down and show me how you choose for these other measures. How do you choose for these other measures? Like the liter. Come on, that's a Coke bottle. Not 2 liters, but 1 liter. And a milliliter, then
So what is the root cause of the problems in the black community?
It's this superiority, this notion of sin that creates different opportunities for different people.
Superiority? What do you mean?
Supremacy, white supremacy.
Really? Yeah. So but you're white.
Why? What makes you say that?
Because your mother's white.
No, my mother's not white.
Your father's white.
Yes, my biological father is
like
white.
all
I don't
the way
identify.
white then.
I do not identify as white. I identify as African American.
Why? Why would you take the lower dummies and go that route rather than going with the smart people?
I went with what my experience is, and I would say that African Americans are the most brilliant people, and I'm proud to be African American.
What's brilliant about spending generations and generations and generations pointing your finger at the white man while your life and your community, your family fall apart?
You're right. Let's forget the whole little thing called slavery. Let's just
put
that in a whole nother box and just pretend like that didn't happen. And let's just pretend like separate but equal, that didn't happen. And let's just pretend like all those things
Blacks
didn't
did better
happen.
then than they are today.
In what? Under
Everything.
segregation?
Academic, yeah. Families, academics, economics. They did education. They did better back then than they are today.
To an extent, you are right that some things were better under segregation. And I'll tell you why. In segregation, right, before Brown versus the Board of Education, most people who looked like me and you went to schools and were taught by people who looked like me and you.
You don't look black.
I'm
So
African
people are going to
American.
be confused.
No one's going to be confused. we went to schools where we were taught by teachers who looked like us, who talked like us, who came from our communities. But what happened in Brown versus the Board of Education? It got rid of basically segregation, right?
Because
And
that's what you
unfortunately, what
people
happened
wanted.
is instead of integrating teachers, we integrated students. And
That's
we
what
sent a
you
student to
people
a
wanted.
school to be taught by a teacher who is never prepared to teach that student, a teacher who thought that student was lesser than. And they were unprepared to do so. And you know what happened after that? When the 20 years after Brown versus the Board of Education, we lost half of the black teacher force.
Let me ask, they should not have had forced integration?
It should have been done differently.
Should they have had forced integration?
Yes, we should have had forced integration.
But you said it wasn't a good idea. If black men and women were to get married, raise their children in the right way to go, love was right with all their heart, soul, and might,
Yeah.
Created businesses which would create jobs in their own communities, ran the black drug dealers and gang members out, would black people, two things, would they be blaming white people, and would they have a better chance for a better life?
I'm not going to go with all the elements of what you suggested, but I will say this.
Why
if
not
we
all
had
the
more
elements?
black families that were intact, we would have a better society.
And
but
would they
unfortunately,
be
we don't have
blaming-
as many black families that are intact
And
because
would
we have
they-
a criminal
and
injustice
would they be
system
blaming
that
white-
targets black men.
Would they be blaming white people if the family was intact, bringing these values into the lives of their children? Would they have a better life?
I don't think people are blaming white people, they're blaming whiteness.
Would they be blaming whiteness?
If what?
If they had family, businesses,
Well,
why not
I think
push that?
I think you assume that I don't believe
Why
those
not
are
push
important.
that, though?
I
Why
believe
not
those.
push that?
I do push that.
But not, no, you're
I'm
not.
an example of that.
You're not
I have
pushing
a
that.
job. Well, we were here to talk about education.
No,
I'm talking
we-
about the lack of preparation of our teachers.
No, but you gave the impression that education is the best thing. And I even
It
asked,
is.
which
You know
was
why?
best, morality?
You know why it's the best thing? You know why it's going to change the future? Because every single child in our country is socialized in the classroom. And that's why we're taking the civil resistance to the classroom through our Black
That's
Minds
amazing.
Matter course.
So if that's true, we just had a black lawyer in the White House, educated, a black man, half white,
Yeah.
half black, went with his blackness.
Well, he's black,
and he ended
just like
up,
me.
He ended up becoming
you.
the worst, most hated, socialist, liberal, godless, weak president that this country has ever experienced. And he's educated. If education is the answer,
See, that's interesting.
why
that
did he make things
you would
better?
see him and see that. And when I
Why
see
did he
him,
make-
I
no,
see
no, no. Why did he make things
inspiration. I see the hopes and dreams of the slaves. I see someone who tried to elevate our community. And unfortunately, he was followed by someone who is not as kind, is not as thoughtful,
Who is
not
that?
as deliberate. Our current president, President Trump.
So you're not loving the great white hope?
The great white hype?
Hope.
Hype?
You didn't vote for the president, President Trump?
Absolutely not.
My final question.
Yeah,
Did you have fun?
I sure did.
Thank you for
Yeah.
coming.
Good to meet you.
You too, buddy.
We're from North California and South Alabama and little towns all around this land. And we can skin a buck and run a trot line, and a country boy can survive. Country folks can survive. Country boy can survive. Country folks can survive.
Next time on The Fallen State.
4 countries now. I just got banned from my 4th country.
Which one was
A
that?
couple weeks ago. Canada. They take you to the airplane and make sure you get on. Sometimes they even ride with you and they give you back your passport once you're out of their country.
That's amazing. How do you get banned from an entire country?
I'm collecting country bands like some people are collecting Beanie Babies.
Well, thanks for watching The Fallen State. We need your continued support. Donate to my nonprofit here. Subscribe and like the videos here. And tell everybody and their mama about the show.